Welcome back and thank you for joining us today. Before we move ahead, I would like to take this moment to thank our gold partners Infobip, Financial Express Brandwagon, Flipkart, and Jagran New Media. For the next case study, we have with us Mr. Siddharth Pednekar, Vice President Strategy and Media, BC Webwise, and Mr. Falgun Bhatt, Head Marketing, Sree Renuka Sugar. They'll be taking us through a success story of their Untouched by Hand campaign. Over to you, Mr. Siddharth.
Hello, everyone. This is a great pleasure to be here, and thank you very much, IMAI. I would also like to thank Falgun Bhatt to actually join us to share this presentation. It's not really an easy job getting him convinced to come on stage or come on showing up a case study. Uh, he's a shy personality, but has accomplished a lot in the brands that he's worked with. Instrumental in creating the Fortune brand, which is a huge brand today. Fortune rice bran oil, Fortune cooking oil, and today he is working with Madhur to take it to another level. And it's a pleasure working with him.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, IMAI, for having me here, and very glad and honored. Also, thank you, Siddharth. That's a bit, little more than I deserve, but thank you all the same. So, in a way, paraphrasing what Shashi Tharoor said in one of his most watched speeches as the 15th case study speaker out of 20, but in the second half of the second day of what has already been a very exhaustive 2 days of marketing conclave, I do also feel like the last wife of Henry VIII. I do know what is more or less expected of me. I'm just not sure how I could do it any differently. But that said, I I am looking forward to talking about some of the interesting work that we have done at Brand Mother in the past 4 5 months. But before I begin, I would sort of want to explain the context here, just for our delegates, just for our viewers, just to explain the background, the market space that we're kind of operating in pre and post COVID. So the consumer market for sugar is currently under transition. And when I say currently under transition, what I'm really saying is it's kind of been under transition for the past 10 years, much slowly in the initial years. And of course, it has kind of picked up pace in the last few years. And consumers are, in fact, slowly graduating from a purchase of loose sugar to packaged sugar. And within packaged, of course, other sugar. So most staples have, gone through this transition or are going through it as we speak. Some of the slightly senior delegates here would probably remember back in about maybe 2, maybe 3 decades ago, a lot of salt, a lot of edible oils used to be sold in the loose form, or rather purchased in the loose form. And over the years, I think consumers have found reasons to kind of upgrade to packaged and branded edible oils and branded salt. A lot of brands have emerged with a lot of propositions. So that's how that market evolved. Back to sugar. Luckily, sugar as an industry is in its very nascent stage. So only 5% of total sugar purchased in India is in the packed form. So 95% of total sugar purchased in India is in the loose form. So that's how small the pie really is of the packed sugar market or the branded sugar market, which is only 5% of the total Indian market. And that's how big, how large, how huge the potential really is, which is 95% of the total sugar market. And it is, with this thought really that Mother Sugar was launched about 11, maybe 12 years ago, where the founders had this one overarching objective, this one single purpose, which was to offer pure and hygienic sugar to all Indians. So much so, in fact, that they didn't call it Mother Sugar, they called it Mother Pure and Hygienic Sugar. So, we obviously wanted some of the best and the purest sweetness in the plates of the Indian consumer. And over the past so many years, our advertising has also kind of followed this. Well, we only talk about the perils of the unpure, unhygienic, even unsafe low sugar, and we talk of benefits conversely of mother sugar. So we've talked of infestation by pests, insects. We've talked of exposure to pollution, dust, germs. We've talked of people plunging their hands in bins of sugar before it reaches your house. and how mother sugar kind of protects you from all of these. So this is what we have done until now in the last few years. Come COVID, however, we found a benefit of mother sugar, which has kind of resonated with our consumers in a very splendid fashion, a very beautiful fashion. And that is what the discussion today is all about, the Untouched by Hand campaign of Mother Sugar. So the objective for this campaign was the same as it has always been, to facilitate the conversion or graduation of consumers rather from purchase of loose sugar to mother pure and hygienic sugar. And the challenge really was twofold. One was actually to catch the attention of consumers. In the initial couple of months, we would all kind of remember that all we could really talk, think, hear was largely about updates and news of the COVID infections. We were tracking that, and that's all that we were kind of talking about. So in that scenario, to occupy the mind space, or to kind of rent out the mind space long enough to have a dialogue on the benefits of mother sugar and the ills of loose sugar was a challenge. What kind of made it even more challenging was the fact that inherently we resist change. We are set in our ways. We prefer the comfort of inertia. And marketers here would kind of be able to relate to this, that changing age-old habits are far more difficult as compared to gaining share from a competing brand. So those being the challenges, what is it that we did and how did we do it? Uh, we spoke to our consumers. We spoke to the lady of the house. Most of the households, most of our consumers are still ladies. Men are cooking, men are involving themselves in the purchase of groceries, which is great, heartening. Yet, as things stand today, most of our audiences are the lady of the house, and she is in which ways the decision maker as far as the grocery is concerned. Uh, so we spoke to her in the simplest, most threadbare fashion. We did not add layers. We did not want to win creative awards. We wanted to reach her, make our messaging understood, and recall. So, in the simplest of language, we kind of told her that mother sugar was untouched by hand, and the message really struck a chord because she's recently learned to equate touch with a risk of contamination or infection. Touch was deadly, untouched was God sent. So, unlike most things which could be washed or sanitized, sugar could not be washed, and sugar could most certainly not be sanitized. So, that is what we told her in very, very simple words. Now, I would kind of request Siddharth from BCOS, our digital partners here, to take us through how the agency kind of decoded the brief, strategized, and devised a campaign which worked well for us. So, over to you, Siddharth.
Thank you, Falgun. Thank you for setting the context. Now, coming to the strategy part, we looked at, so we basically adopted a strategy where we customize the messaging for every stage of the marketing funnel. Now, your interest, desire, action, all those stages, from a communication perspective, we kind of segregated them into three levels: connect, converse, and convert. So connect and converse formed the top funnel activities where we actually went out and reached out to the audience. Now, reaching out happened at a point which was of most important concern to the lady of the house at that point of time, which is infection through human touch. You would be aware that this was a time when COVID had just begun, and there was a sort of a panic in a lot of people, and they wanted solutions that were really quick. So we tapped this particular sentiment and spoke to the audience about the same. We took this conversation further by giving them ways in which they could stay away from human touch. How can they actually prevent contamination of any products or any groceries that they are bringing at home? This conversation helped us to further deepen the engagement with them. And eventually, we gave them a rationale that Madhur sugar is something which is untouched by hands, and that's a good enough reason for you to actually convert from your loose packs of sugar, loose sugar buying habit to actually packaged sugar. Yeah, Falgun, we can go to the next. We also looked at going through the entire consumer buying journey. Now, this is very important because every consumer has a certain pattern in which she kind of follows while getting exposed to a particular brand and then ultimately deciding on purchasing and then maybe advocating it. So we identified the different platforms that she would engage with in each phase of the consumer journey, and then identified the most important of these platforms and created unique content which was very relevant at that point of time and complemented the facilities or the features of that particular platform. In the next slides, I will show you how we did that. So moving to the connect part of the funnel. So the connect part, in the connect part, we actually focused on providing a direct functional conversation. We did not go into any long emotional aspects because we wanted to be hard hitting. It was a time when people did not have time to think too much. They wanted a quick solution. So a direct functional communication really is something that we thought will really work for the brand. And we spoke of how it would benefit the consumer by being switching to a hygienically packaged Madhur Sugar brand. To kind of test this further, we partnered with Google. Now, we being an agency which is a Google partner agency, preferred partner agency, we had access to some of Google tools which are not available to everybody. And one of that was the brand lift survey. We invested a small amount of pilot in a pilot campaign with this communication and saw the results that we would probably get, and the results were so promising it gave us all the necessary confidence to go ahead. So this is something which is important to note, that you can always test out with small pilots on digital, which generally is very difficult on other media. uh, E-commerce on the same time had already started getting a lot of traction. You would know that the overall e-commerce sales in this COVID scenario had started peaking, and a lot of people, intenders, were going to e-commerce platforms even for the first time. So we not just used it as a last mile activity, but we used e-commerce also as a reach builder, because now we will get relevant reach of people who would actually go and purchase our products. So we ran reach campaigns even on e-commerce during this time. Reach campaigns on a broader level were primarily focused on Facebook and Instagram, because these two platforms gave us the highest reach at the lowest possible cost and also allowed us to do a lot of experiments in terms of creativity and at a very precise targeting level. The communication, of course, was packaged, was towards stay safe by using packaged and hygienic products, and we highlighted the benefits of Madhur Sugar overall. Going ahead. Yeah. So now that we were reaching out to the audience in a push way, we wanted to also get consumers to start spreading the message themselves, because a message that we were kind of putting out was ultimately of benefit to the consumer. So who else would be a better person to send out a message like this, right? So it would be the women of the house who takes care of the family. So we created some very authentic looking videos of housewives who were talking about tips to keep their family safe during COVID. And one of the things that they also spoke about how hygienic something would be, like a packaged sugar versus an open loose sugar that you buy. And this kind of a video was circulated through WhatsApp, through various groups, and this got us a lot of traction, lot of shares and forwards further on. Almost to the extent of 40 lakh views were grossed just with this activity. Going ahead. Going ahead to the conversation section, now we wanted to not just connect, but build some meaningful conversations, right? We want to sustain this and start building consideration. So we got roped in a few influencers and popular personalities who were very relatable, or somebody that our TG really looked up to. And we continue to ask the question, is your sugar untouched by hands? And so did somebody like a Soha Ali Khan or Anita or Surbhi Jyoti or Karishma Tanna. These people really resonated with the audience. Some of them were mothers, some of them were homemakers, and the audience could really relate with them. We got about 14 million impressions through this activity, and a lot of credibility was built around the brand using this activity. In the convert phase, we now had already reached out to a great audience. We had sensitized them to a great degree. We had already started engaging in conversations. Now, in the convergence, from a convergence perspective, we thought that, okay, let's move the budget slightly greater towards the bottom of the funnel where we are going to get a lot more conversions. And this was also a time when the number of users of e-commerce had started to increase significantly. So we got this to actually benefit us by pushing more ads on the e-commerce portals and getting direct conversions. We also engaged in lookalike audiences to build greater audiences for our TG who was already purchasing the product and overall increase the sales numbers. Seeing the initial response that we had got for the celebrities of about 14 million impressions, we thought of leveraging the face value of the celebrities a little further. All of these celebrities have their own content out there, own videos out there, and their fans follow this content on a regular basis. So we ran remarketing campaigns on these kind of content and showed them banners which were displaying these celebrities. Now, for example, it was something like when you're watching a video by Anita, you would see Anita switch to Madhur Sugar. Have you? This is a bumper ad that comes up when you're watching her video. And it has a immediate recall value and a reminder that you have seen something earlier and you had to take a decision. Have you taken that decision? So this is something that worked really well for us. We even followed further with a lot of GDN creatives. And one important thing to note over here is none of these celebrities are really brand ambassadors for us. So the brand has not really invested humongously to make them brand ambassadors, but using specific content that you have got rights for to create the necessary impact is something that we were really able to achieve. Going ahead. By this time, monsoon had already started to come in, and we saw that we knew that there is a lot of traction or a lot of concern among the mothers and ladies of the house that sugar should not be wet, it should not get spoiled because of the rain. So we harped on to this as well and created banners about untouched by rain, which further helped us to drive the message home that you should move to a packaged product, packaged sugar. Regional languages, as many of you would know and agree, has a very strong connect with the consumers. When you see a message in your own mother tongue, it has a far more impact, far lasting impact, and that's something that we ensured by converting all the activities that we were doing into regional languages. So we looked into Hindi, Marathi, and Gujarati languages, which are like stronghold areas for us. Now, how was the result of this entire campaign? This is something I would let Falgun to really talk about because he's the brand custodian and he would know the best.
All right. So, we've got less than 2 minutes, so I'll be very quick about this. So, I think between all the things that we did, whether it was on influencers, WhatsApp, social media, of course, we've done 3 sets of creative. So, after all of those things, we ended up with a 42% growth, which is huge considering that, we were talking of between 17 and 20% growth pre-COVID level. So there's a fair amount of growth, and this is quarter on quarter. This is not your month on month, because there's a certain amount of hoarding which probably happened in the initial stages of lockdown. So there's this, of course, the share of voice has gone up 2.5 times, and most importantly, and which is a consumer metric, the organic searches have nearly doubled. Of course, it has doubled even after this, for because of what we're doing now, but that's beyond the scope of this discussion. So it doubled from the pre-COVID levels. So yeah, so did the campaign work? I'm inclined to believe that it did. That's the end of our presentation, and any questions that we can kind of quickly answer.
Thank you, everyone. If you have any queries, we can take now, or there's a number flashing on your screen. Falgun, if you could show it again. There's a number that we'll be putting out over here. This is like a digital newsletter that we send out every week on WhatsApp. It's a WhatsApp newsletter. And if you just give us a missed call on this number or maybe send us a message, we will add you to our digital newsletter, which will keep you updated about the latest happenings in the digital industry.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, speakers, for such